usually one of those oppressed groups. People of color, people from lower income communities, they're oppressed groups. People that have their voices stolen away from them. And so this is one of the first times now that this circle of repression extended out far enough to now start roping in middle to upper class white kids. And as I start roping in middle to upper class white kids, myself and 6 other co-defendants and the nonprofit corporation that we share, people start taking notice, the mainstream media start taking notice. Now, this does not say that what happens every single day in lower income communities, to people of color, to women, to especially people from the Middle East right now, post-September 11th. This does not say that what they're going through is any less. But what this says is that the repressive tactics of our nation right now are more aggressive than they've ever been. And that what they fear is they fear the tactical model that we made with this campaign. They fear other groups picking it up. And so sitting through court, I've been indicted. I've been indicted because of this website, along with 6 other individuals, saying that the website itself was a crime. And the indictment there says that all of our names and our quote-unquote aliases, I don't think I have an alias, so I don't feel quite as cool. But yeah, I'm definitely not as cool. I'm there somewhere in the middle. That I did knowingly and willfully combine, conspire, and agree with one another and others to use a facility in interstate and foreign commerce for the purpose of causing physical disruption to the function of HLS, an animal enterprise, and intentionally damaging and causing the loss of property used by HLS in amounts exceeding $10,000. Later on, when you scroll down through the indictment, you'll find a bunch of different things. And as you find a bunch of different things, at the end, they place a bill on it. The bill they place at the end of our indictment, in addition to serving our jail time, is $143 million.
They want the debt paid off.
Yeah, they're not going to get shit from us. Like, we're mainly college kids, so no one's going to get a single thing. Here's some of the examples. I think it's page 15. If you could just stop page 15 for a second. Some of the examples of things that we reported on that got us in trouble. Could you just scroll up a little bit? Okay, this is where you see FT and BMOC and things like that. They put it in the indictment so people will not know in the public what these people's names were. This is live from the internet. You can get it on the U.S. Attorney's website. But FT stands for Frank Tasco. Frank Tasco was the CEO of the insurance provider for Huntington Life Sciences. It was called Marsh & McLennan. They're the largest insurance firm, the corporate insurance firm in the world. It says the Frank Tasco Commando Division of the Animal Liberation Front, whatever the hell that means, it sounds like Super Friends, claims responsibility for the destruction of 4 greens and 4 holes at the Meadowbrook Golf Club / PGA Light Path Classic. Frank Tasco, big man on campus to Marsh & McLennan Corporation, and his Super Friends League of Justice wreaked havoc upon the course, sabotaging all of the PGA's week-long tournament. The Frank Tasco Commandos dug 3-foot deep holes at 4 of the 18 holes, removing the metal casings and flags, scarred each putting green with different trenches and holes. Then it goes and says the damages from this action may in fact exceed hundreds of thousands of dollars between the damage to the well-maintained golf course and the disruption to the PGA event and the club itself. We found out through the media that Frank Tasco, the CEO of Marsh & McLennan, was the guest announcer at this Light Path Classic. So it turns out that when people showed up for the PGA tournament with like Jack Nicklaus and everyone else there to hit the balls into the holes, it turns out that Frank Tasco was spray painted on the side of the building or a billboard or something like that, and the 18th hole was dug up and they couldn't play the full stretch of the golf course. So with all that said, and people asking for refunds, they were claiming hundreds of thousands in damages because someone decided to dig a couple of holes. That's not violent. That's not too aggressive. That's clearly not terrorism. That's smart. That's well planned. And it's silly, you know? But it worked. It worked because that person was so embarrassed because he had his private space violated. These CEOs want their private space. They want their clout. He was embarrassed. So what happened? A couple of weeks later, This company, well not company, governmental firm called MI6, their British Secret Service, came over here to the States and bartered a deal between Marshall McLennan and the Department of Trade and Industry in England. To say the Department of Trade and Industry in England was going to pick up the corporate insurance for Huntington Life Sciences under a new bill drafted between President Bush and Tony Blair that said that Huntington Life Sciences can now qualify for something called terrorism insurance. They were victims of terror, and therefore the insurance provider is now Department of Trade and Industry, which is like our Department of Commerce here in the States, but it's based out of the UK. So that's where that went to. And so we got indicted. And I was indicted on this charge called animal enterprise terrorism. And it's kind of flattering being that me and my co-defendant, who I'm not going to say who or where he is, but me and the 6 co-defendants, it's the first time anyone has been charged with this in the States ever. It's the first time this case will ever go to court. It's landmark because no one's been charged, and therefore this case will become case law from this point forward. And I like to call it a gateway law. People go and say, you hear this talk in the mainstream media that, and I'm not saying this is true at all, that marijuana is a gateway drug to other drugs, like cocaine, things like that. And I think that's all bullshit. But I think that analogy applies here, though. You see, stopping an animal enterprise actions like this and saying that we were reporting and using the internet to report other people's activities and saying that what we did on the whole was a criminal conspiracy is dangerous. See, I'm not asking anyone in this room to agree with me or agree with the ideas of animal rights. I hope you would, but that's not why I'm here today. This is a Repression conference. What I'm talking about right now is to open your eyes to the fact that this probably will not stop here. Just like we created a model of successful campaigning against Huntington Life Sciences, they're now creating a model and a new law to deal with something that this country was founded on. This country was founded on direct action at the Boston Tea Party. This country was founded on boycotts when someone committed injustice. So what this is saying now is that a boycott or an act of direct action like the Boston Tea Party is now considered to be terrorism. And so if you were to boycott a company that has animals, if you were to boycott a company that has animals and exceed $10,000 in lost profits to that company because they're a boycott, and just as long as it happened in more than one state, now you can be charged with a federal terrorism charge. And I call this a gateway law, because it doesn't stop there. What happens to the anti-war movement when they start applying more effective tactics such as this? What happens to civil liberties movements? What happens to people that are organizing in communities of color? What happens to them? And those people, one thing that I think is good right now is because we're middle to upper class white kids, we've been writing letters, trying to get everyone we can to come in and get lawyers to fight this, to show that this can't happen, to show that we can try and use the Constitution to our advantage and make sure that this law never passes, that we can show in case law that this law in fact is falsified, this law in fact is flawed. And if we can prove that throughout our court case and say the whole thing is unconstitutional, then they will have a lot of trouble convicting anyone from this point forward on a similar charge. If we fail, I do about 3.5 years in jail, get out, I have 8 years supervised release, and get my pay garnished after I declare bankruptcy. Not a big deal. I'm willing to do that time because I think this campaign's important. I think this model's very important. But what is a big deal is the repercussions that can happen down the line. Because I foresee anti-war activists organizing against the war, or organizing, say, more strategically against Lockheed Martin for producing weapons of mass destruction. To say, all right, we're going to target this company like those people target Huntington Life Sciences, which I would love to see one day. I would love to see everyone that makes chemical weapons get their finances pulled out from underneath them. And I'd love to see this model applied there. And if it was, I could see those people doing life in prison for that, because those companies are a whole hell of a lot more powerful than Huntington Life Sciences. Huntington Life Sciences is practically bankrupt at this point. So I guess I'll answer questions at the end of this and let the other gentleman get on. I'm sorry for talking so long. And thank you guys a lot.